Hello, everyone. Hola a todos, and welcome to the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE video tutorial. This particular video tutorial is on how to approach the role play. The role play is a very important part of the Spanish GCSE or iGCSE speaking exam for many students, and that is what we're looking at in this particular tutorial video. So, just to introduce myself quickly first, my name is Dhananjay Talwar, and I studied French and Italian for my MA at the University of Cambridge, graduating back in 2015. And I've been in the field of education ever since that time, mostly as a tutor. I've learned more than 20 languages myself to different levels, of course, but that includes at least 9 of them to fluency. So it's something that I'm really passionate about, that I enjoy doing. And I likewise enjoy motivating my students, making sure they know how to learn languages efficiently, how to enjoy the process, and how to achieve their target grades for exams such as GCSEs or iGCSEs. And I've done this already for over 500 students whom I've helped to achieve or exceed their target grade in GCSEs or iGCSEs for languages while I've been a full-time tutor. I've taught 8 languages so far to GCSE or iGCSE level, and several of those at higher levels as well. Okay, so just before we go into the crux of the matter, this is a look at the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE exam boards. So as of August 2025, there are 4 exam boards for GCSE Spanish and 2 for iGCSE Spanish. So if you're a student, then you should, of course, recognize your exam board here. And yeah, there are differences, some differences between exam boards. So I really recommend getting to know which exam board you're taking as early as possible, and even to know whether you're taking foundation tier or higher tier, because for the GCSE Spanish exam boards, the 4 of those written out here, there is a distinction between foundation tier and higher tier. And there can be differences between those as well. So I recommend knowing whether you're doing foundation tier or higher tier and which exam board as early as you can. And then you can tailor your preparation accordingly. There is large overlap in the material and the syllabus across exam boards. But many students prefer to use past papers or relevant materials for their own exam boards to practice. And I should also mention that AQA and Pearson edXL GCSE, the first 2 exam boards here, have just updated their format and syllabus for many of their papers for languages for GCSE exams from 2026 onwards. Okay, this particular video tutorial, though, is all about the role play. And the role play is an important part of the Spanish GCSE or iGCSE speaking exam for every single one of the exam boards that are given in bold here on this particular screen. So that's AQA, Pearson edXL, WJEC EDUCAS, CCEA, and Cambridge iGCSE. So the only exam board for which this is not relevant is Pearson edXL iGCSE. While there are some differences, as I'll point out, between exam boards for the role play, if you're a student of any of these exam boards in bold here, then you should really benefit from this video. Okay, we're going to start off by looking at what the role play even is. So the role play is typically the first part of the Spanish GCSE or iGCSE speaking exam. It always used to be exactly the first part of the speaking test, but as mentioned, AQA and Pearson edXL GCSE have somewhat changed their format and syllabus for speaking exams and other parts of language GCSE exams too from 2026 onwards. So for some exam boards like Pearson edXL GCSE, it is possible that you would start off with the reading aloud task instead of the role play. But the role play is either the first part of your Spanish GCSE or iGCSE speaking exam or very near the beginning. And it has been designed with that in mind to somewhat ease students into their speaking test. Although you certainly, if you're a student, cannot assume that you don't have to revise the role play or that you're simply going to score very well in the role play. You do need to know what the role play consists of, how to prepare, and the relevant exam technique in any case too. The role play itself is always an imaginary situation which is set in a Spanish-speaking environment. That may not be necessarily in Spain itself. It could be in a different Spanish-speaking country. Spanish is, of course, a really widely spoken language. So you could well find yourself doing a role play that is set in Central America or Latin America or a different part of the world instead. As a student, you would always play the part of yourself. That never changes in the role play. But the examiner's role can vary considerably. They could play the part of, well, they will always play the part of somebody else. That could be, for instance, a friend, a waiter or waitress, a teacher. There are many, many possibilities. And as you look through past papers and examples, you'll see many many different roles come up for the examiner. The exact scenario also will vary. You could be, for example, at a job interview that came up in 2021 for Pearson at Excel, or speaking to your Spanish friend, as was the case in the specimen paper for AQA. Although that last scenario, speaking to a friend from a Spanish-speaking country, is in fact very common, and you'll often see that in example role plays or past papers. All of this information, of course, it's important to note, should be written on your candidate card for the role play, and you will have that with you during your preparation time too, as well as, say, the candidate card for the reading aloud task, if you have to do that, and for the photo card, if you've got to do that as well. So it's very important to note what the scenario itself is and the role of the examiner, as well as a few other details, which will all be given on the candidate card for the role play. The role play consists of 5 prompts, usually, that the student has to answer. This can vary somewhat from exam board to exam board, but it is normally still exactly 5 different prompts that the student has to answer. Yeah, there is some variation there, though. And these can include an unpredictable question and a question that the student has to ask the examiner. That does vary from exam board to exam board. The exact requirements of the role play, not all of the exam boards would have an unpredictable question or question the student has to ask the examiner. And you can check the website for your particular exam board as a great starting point to know what to expect for your particular speaking test. The examiner is the one that always starts and ends the role play. So as a student, you do not have to worry about that at all. The examiner will start off the role play they'll kick off by announcing the scenario in Spanish as it's written on your role play card. And then you would take it in turns. The examiner and student would take it in turns, go back and forth until the examiner ends and rounds off the role play with the final sentence. So it's always the examiner to start and end the role play. The examiner and student will take it in turns to speak in between. And just to give you a full overview of how the speaking exam works, generally you would have 10 to 15 minutes of preparation time. The exact duration depends on your exam board. And that will normally take place in a separate room with just you, possibly 1 or 2 other students, and an invigilator. And the invigilator's role is just to make sure that you do not cheat during that preparation time, because for that time, you're not allowed to look up words. You cannot use a dictionary or the internet at all. And you will have your role play candidate card with you during that preparation time. You'll know which role play you have to do, as well as your reading aloud task candidate card, if you're doing a reading aloud task, and your photo card candidate card, if you're doing a photo card in your speaking exam. And that preparation time is very important. The aim of that is very much to prepare as much as possible for all of these candidate cards and make sure you know what to say when. Make sure you're as prepared as possible by the time you actually step into the room for the full speaking exam. Once you do go into the room for your final speaking exam, the examiner would normally introduce themselves again, put you at ease a little bit with a little bit of light chat, often in English and sometimes in Spanish too, to warm you up somewhat. They'll normally announce or tell you how exactly the speaking exam will unfold again and the format of it before announcing that they're going to start the tape. They will then announce to the tape your candidate number, your name and other details, their own name and important details, and then they will announce that the role play or the first part of the speaking exam is going to begin. So that's how it normally unfolds. And of course, Those 10 to 15 minutes that I mentioned of preparation time are really, really important. And that is my number one top tip for the role play. The amount of information that you're given on your candidate card for the role play does really vary from exam board to exam board. For some exam boards like AQA or Pearson at Excel GCSE, you may be given more full information, which allows you to prepare quite thoroughly in your preparation time for the role play. But other exam boards, say Cambridge or GCSE, tend to give minimal information on their role play cards for the candidate, which means that it's quite tough for candidates to prepare. They don't know exactly what they're going to have to be required to say or when. But no matter what, try and make as much use of your preparation time as possible and try and plan out mentally what you're going to say in the role play and exactly when as much as you can. Try to stay calm as well, particularly for the speaking test. The speaking test is especially nerve-wracking for many students, tends to be the most nerve-wracking exam, I believe, for most language students for a few different reasons. So try and take a few deep breaths before you head into the actual room for the speaking exam. Make sure that you answer every single prompt or bullet point. So if there are 5 of these prompts written out on your role play card, that means you have to answer every single one of those. Definitely make sure you don't leave anything out. Keep it simple and accurate. This is really key for the role play. There's no need to show off, and you can score top marks or close to the top marks in the role play without actually considerably varying your language, even sticking mostly to the present tense, although that somewhat depends on the exact questions that you're asked as well, and not showing off, so not using more complex grammatical features. Those are definitely useful for other parts of your speaking test, but not really required in the role play, as you'll see. Another thing to really watch out for is whether the situation or scenario as described on the role play card is formal or informal. If it's a formal situation, you're talking to a stranger or somebody who you're not supposed to know very well or supposed to be older or in a position of authority, then if you're addressing the examiner directly or asking them a question, you should use the more formal form, usted, and the appropriate parts of the verb, third person singular verb forms as well. If it's a more informal situation, so you're described as speaking to a friend or someone who's younger than you, for instance, or you know very, very well, then you should use the more informal form, tu, and the appropriate verb forms in the second person singular form when you're addressing the examiner directly or asking them a question directly. So it's important to be aware of the formality of the situation too. Now I'm going to show you a few examples. So this first example comes from the sample paper for AQA. This is foundation tier, actually. So this is new material provided for the exams from 2026 onwards by AQA. You'll see that I've written out everything the examiner would say in red, including the situation itself, which is given at the top. It says you're speaking to your Cuban friend and I'm your friend. And everything that would be written out on the candidate's roleplay card or the student's roleplay card is given in between in orange. And I've translated everything, of course, into English as well. So I'll give you a little bit of time to read over this. And then I'll show you exactly what I would say for each one of these prompts if I were the candidate doing this roleplay. Okay, let me show you that. Yep, so you can see that this is all the same scenario. The scenario is written out in red at the top. Everything that the examiner would say, those questions are also given in red. But I've changed the orange parts from the prompts that would be on the roleplay card itself to what I would actually say if I were the candidate performing this roleplay. So I'll give you a little bit of time to read through those. And again, I've translated everything into English as well in brackets. And I'll just point out some features of my answers that I've been careful to include as well. So, you can see that I've really kept things relatively simple with my language. I haven't varied my language hugely, and I haven't used complex verb forms. I've stuck actually largely to the present tense. I haven't varied that or used other tenses. You may need to use perhaps some past or future tenses depending on the exact questions that you asked. But here you can see that I've been able to just use the present tense. And that would be absolutely fine as long as it's accurate and correct in Spanish for this example role play. I have used a few different verb forms, and I've been careful to provide all of the necessary information in every answer too. So all of the information that it is required to give. And I've made sure to keep my answers very relevant to the initial question too. I haven't gone above and beyond what is required. I haven't given more information than what is required. Sometimes students try and do this, but it can be dangerous because if you make a mistake when providing that extra information, you could be penalized. Yeah, and I've really prioritized accuracy above all. And for the role play, that usually will work well. Okay, so now time for example number 2. This particular example comes from a Cambridge iGCSE past paper. And Cambridge iGCSE, being an iGCSE exam board, has no distinction between foundation and higher tier, so everything is just one level. You can see that everything that the examiner would say is written out in red. Again, that information would not be given, or these questions themselves would not be given on the candidate's role play card, of course. But the scenario certainly would be, and that's written at the top here, which tells us that you are in Spain. You go to the tourist office to buy tickets for the tourist bus, which also indicates that this is a more formal situation than the first example. Here, you're talking to a stranger, and so you'd have to adjust the language and use the usted form, as required too. In orange here, we have everything that is written out, that would be written out on the candidate's role play card. So all of the information that you'd be given to prepare in your preparation time. And I'm just going to show you, of course, what I would say if I were the candidate doing this particular role play. Okay, here we go. So yeah, I've written out the translation for everything in brackets in English too. And the only thing that's changed otherwise is for the orange parts, I've written out exactly what I would say for every single part or prompt if I were the candidate performing this role play. Again, I'll give you a bit of time to read over everything while pointing out some of these features in the answers. So you'll notice that, again, I've kept the language rather simple. For some answers, for certain prompts, the answers are not even full sentences, so not even one full sentence, just a phrase or so, such as para 4 personas or para miércoles, por favor. Those are not full sentences. There's no verb actually in there. But that's still sufficient. That's absolutely fine for the role play because I'm still giving the information required. It's still grammatically correct or accurate in Spanish. And it is more or less how a natural conversation would unfold as well. In fact, I haven't really given any more information than what is required. And I've kept my own grammar and vocabulary relatively simple too in my answers because it's the role play. There's no real need to show off. I've used generally just the present tense throughout, such as prefiero, present tense of the verb preferir, so I prefer. I have used the conditional tense, which is quite an irregular one. This is actually quisiera. Technically, that's the imperfect subjunctive of the verb querer, to want. But it is nonetheless quite a common verb form in Spanish. And apart from that, I've provided all of the information the question is asking for. And yeah, try to keep it grammatically accurate above all. Okay, now there's just time for a quick quiz to test your understanding of the Spanish GCSE or iGCSE role play. So, question number 1, where is the role play actually set? Let me give you a little bit of time to think over the answer to this before I show you. So, where is the role play set? Okay, I'm going to show you the answer then. It is in a Spanish-speaking environment. So the role play will always be set in a Spanish-speaking environment. The exact scenario can definitely vary. You'll come across plenty if you're practicing with past papers, but it will be set in an environment in a Spanish-speaking country. Question 2 is true or false. The examiner always plays the role of the candidate's friend. Is that one true or is it false? Let me give you some time to think through this. Okay, and I'm going to show the answer. So this particular one is false. The examiner's role can really vary. The examiner does often play the role of the candidate's friend, so that definitely can come up, but certainly not always or necessarily. Okay, number 3 then, true or false. You should give very detailed answers in your role play. Is this one true or is it false? I'll give you a bit of time to think over this before revealing the answer. Okay, it's time for the answer now. So this one's also false. Just stick to the information you're required to give. Nothing more. Simplicity and accuracy tend to be really the key for the role play, and nothing really beyond that. Okay, question number 4 then. Who is it that always starts and ends the role play? I did mention this specific detail. See if you can remember it. Just give it a little bit more time. Okay, and I'll reveal the answer to this question now. So this one is the examiner. It's the examiner who starts and ends the role play. In between, of course, the examiner and candidate would take it in turns to speak. But yeah, the examiner is the one that kicks off and also rounds off the role play. So if you have questions about any of this at all, or if you'd like information about more personalized help, which I do offer too, this is how you can get in touch by email, through Facebook or Instagram. I do post on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn every single day with sharing my passion for languages with everybody, encouraging people to learn languages and making sure they know why it's so beneficial and how they can do so efficiently and in very fun ways too. But I post a lot about GCSE and iGCSE as well, especially for languages, including Spanish, how you can maximize your mark, how you can create a revision plan, exam technique, and more. So I recommend checking those out and following as well. I have many resources, including free resources available, and that includes for Spanish, GCSE, and iGCSE. And I do one-to-one classes, group classes, courses, and more. So if you'd like to know about any of this in more detail, just get in touch.